Satnam. Nice to be here with everybody. So the last time that I was in this building was 20 years ago on my 16th birthday. That's funny, huh? I grew up in Calgary and haven't lived there in a really long time. But when I was 16, turning 16 on my birthday, the band Bad Religion was going to play at the Shaw Conference Center, and I had to go. So I went to my parents and I said, Bad Religion, first of all, the name was a bit like, oh, I don't know if they're going to go for this. Bad Religion is playing in Edmonton at the Shaw Conference Center on my 16th birthday, and I have to go. And you know what they said? No. And you know what I did? Went anyway. And I said, I'm going to meet Greg Graffin, the singer from Bad Religion, and shake his hand. That's what I want for my 16th birthday. And I got it. And then when I got home, I walked into the door, slumped into the door, hung my tail between my legs, and said, what's my punishment? And to this day, I don't remember the punishment, but I remember the show. And if you would have asked my poor mother at the time if she thought that 20 years from now I would be teaching yoga and meditation in the same building where I ran away to see Bad Religion, she would have said, hell no. So it's good to be back here and teaching. And one of the things in my years of experience with this practice of yoga and meditation is that I draw influence from all sorts of sources. I draw as much influence from punk rock and Ian Mackay and the band Minor Threat as I do from Yogi Bhajan, my teacher Guru Singh, and the lineage of Kundalini Yoga. And the beauty of the teachings that Yogi Ji gave us is he said, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. That's the truth. If it has to be this and not that, you're going to face a lot of challenges. The idea with this practice is to slip away the BS, strip away the BS, which is bullshit, you know that one, but also your belief systems that keep you from being you. And any belief system that you have, any practice that you have, throw the rules away and notice, is this supporting me to be the best version of myself? And if it is, keep doing it. And people are going to have all kinds of ideas of, you shouldn't do this, and if you're a this, you can't do that, and if you're a that, you can't do this, and on and on and on. Who gives you the authority to be a master or a leader in this practice? You do. Not me, not Yogi Bhajan, not, My teacher, he says, you know what the problem with great leaders are? They make great followers. And Yogi Ji, when he brought this practice to the West, he said, I'm not here to initiate anybody. In fact, I will not initiate anybody. I'm here to create teachers. And then you be you. Because if you're a student of this practice, you're meant to be the master tomorrow. Right? You understand? And what defines a master according to your conditions? You do. How could I know what you've been through? I mean, I just shared with you a very small portion of my life, But the beauty of this practice is that it will, over time, or immediately, depending on your commitment, reveal who you are in relationship to the circumstances that you face. That's why it's called revealing the diamond. The way I describe it is, what is the value of a child at birth? You can't say, right? Infinite. You don't go down the line of all the newborn babies and they have price tags hanging off their toes. This one's worth $5,000. Oh, this one is a dud. It goes in the sale bin. Every baby is born with infinite value, right? I mean, no, if anybody's like, actually, well, I don't know if I can help you with that. I think you need deeper work. But yeah, it's true. And then somehow, sometimes even right away, depending on the karmas of the parents, somehow you forget of your infinite worth. Sometimes right away, like if a child is born into poverty, drug addiction, all of these things, from a young age, the infinite value is forgotten. Kind of harsh, right? And some of us have a really great childhood where we realize our infinite worth. But somewhere along the line, something happens to make you think that you're less than. And then you begin to create a neuroses if you let it happen without putting a stop to it. And you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it. And if you repeat it enough, it can become depression. And depression is when you think that there's no way out of your circumstances because you don't know who you are in relationship to your circumstances. You think your circumstances define you, but they don't. Because you know when you were born with what? Infinite worth. And Guru Nanak, the Udasi yogi who passed this yoga down through the gurus all the way to Yogi Bhajan, to Guru Singh, to the amazing Guru Jagat, to us sitting here, he said, Ad such, jugad such, happy such, nanak hosi be such. It means you had infinite worth when you were born. You have infinite worth throughout your life. Whether you acknowledge it or not is up to you. You have infinite worth right now where you're sitting, no matter what's going on in your life. And you'll always have infinite worth. That's the primary teaching of it right there. From infinity you come, to infinity you'll return. And in the middle, whether you acknowledge that or not, is up to you. Whether you have a hard life or an easy life or a gay life or a straight life or a black life or a white life or a Jewish life or an atheist life, it doesn't matter. These are the belief systems that are part of your conditions. And if the conditions allow you to see who you are, practice them. And if they take you away from your infinite worth, don't waste your time. Life's hard enough, you know. So I use words like God and self and Guru and Buddha, and some of these words rub people the wrong way. I want to be clear, it's all the same thing. And a yogi, like we said, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God in all. A yogi, someone who practices yoga, sees sameness everywhere. In fact, somebody came to Yogi Bhajan after a talk and said, "Sir, I loved everything you said. It was amazing. I would even be a student of yours if it wasn't for the fact that I'm an atheist." And you know what Yogi Bhajan did? Shook his hand and said, "Me too." And he said, "What? You just talked about God for like 2 hours." And he said, "I don't believe in any idea of God that's been pitched so far by humans." The guy thought, "Yeah, me too, it's the same." There you go. Sameness. Not he's trying to correct him because he doesn't believe what he believes, and then off we go. It's looking for the sameness beneath the surface of I'm a this and you're a that. Right? Like to be a master, you see if it's like, how can I be friendly to this person? Even if the person is behaving like an asshole. Our teacher says compassion is noticing where the person's assholeness comes from and recognizing it's not them. It's from their conditions. Something happened to cause them to behave like that. How do we know that's true? Every child is born with infinite worth. Something happened. We don't know what. We weren't there. And if you can recognize a person for who they are instead of for their conditions, what do you develop? Starts with a C. Compassion, which is the heart of all of this. You know, we think, you tell somebody, "Oh, I teach yoga." What do they tell you? "I can't do yoga." Why? "I'm not flexible." Do you hear me saying anything about being flexible? No, it's about compassion. Yoga means oneness with God. Is God something outside of you? No. How could it be? God is infinite, so God is everywhere. What does a yogi look for? Sameness. Where? Everywhere. Right? So you recognize it. You see it in everybody. You start to notice over time that the more you beat yourself down, the more you harm all of society. And the more you love yourself and uplift yourself and acknowledge your infinite worth, the more you heal the whole. Because we are all of this. Put your hand up if you've never experienced pain or suffering before. Nobody. This could be a room full of 1 million people and nobody would put their hand up. That's how we know that it's our suffering. It's not your suffering and I'm over here. How could it be? And so a yogi is somebody who practices this. Oneness with God. Where's God? Everywhere. Who's God? You are. How do you connect to the Creator? Be creative. That's a good way. Be kind. That's it. And you can call it God, and you can call it not God, and you can believe in aliens, and you can not believe in aliens, and you can believe in the Buddha, and you can believe that there's lemmings under the ground with a giant magnet moving people around. Doesn't matter. As long as you're being creative and you're being compassionate and you're loving yourself, seeing the infinite worth. Because, man, stuff comes up that will tell you that you're not that in your life. And that's what revealing the diamond is. In yoga, they have these two terms called Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha means consciousness, or God, or whatever, lemmings with a magnet, whatever you want to call it. It means like the creative force. And Prakriti means the creation, nature. What is the characteristic that makes something part of nature? It always what? Changes, right? Like you could be like, I'm going to hold on to this 24-year-old body for my whole life. And you could do 500 million chaturangas and drink green juice and everything like that. And in some way, it's going to change. There's no way of avoiding it. Right? Or you could live in Edmonton and the weather's starting to get cold and you could just say all the prayers and wake up at 3 o'clock and give alms to the poor and pray and say, please don't let the winter come. And what will happen? The winter will come. Nature is always changing. Are your thoughts always changing? So what are your thoughts part of? Nature. Are your emotions always changing? Yeah. So what are they part of? Nature. Is your personality changing? This is where it gets tricky. The answer is yes. But there's some small portion of how you experience your personality that stays the same. My personality is not fully the same as when I was 7 years old. It's not. But some portion of it is. Right? I mean, I feel like me. I'm having all these experiences, and then some portion of me is changing. Now you see the relationship between Purusha and Prakriti. Your consciousness doesn't change. And the way it works is that your consciousness is the one who gets to decide who you are in relationship to the changes. And as soon as you allow the changes or nature to try and define consciousness, what happens? Starts with an R. Resistance. Right? And the cool thing about resistance is it reveals that even your missteps are leading you to consciousness. When you make a mistake, or you allow Prakriti, your conditions, nature, your thoughts, your body, the car accident, your whatever happens, to take away your infinite worth, resistance will arise to correct you and remind you of who you are. And in the beginning, the resistance will show up as a whisper. Like for me, I'm a recovered drug addict and alcoholic. I can look back and hear the voice over time saying, you probably shouldn't drink. I can hear it now. Then I was like, yeah. That was the resistance showing up as a whisper. I can also tell you that I let it get to the point where that whisper became a scream and a slap in the face a few times before I got it. That's the resistance. When you repeat something over and over and over that's taking you away from you, resistance will show up to correct you. And the idea with this yoga, like Kundalini yoga, and all yoga is Kundalini yoga, but that's another class. If you allow nature, your conditions, to push you around, resistance will show up in a more severe form. It's just the way it works. Which is sort of refreshing, actually, because it shows you that even when you're screwing up, it's leading you to you. There's not a path to keep doing that, unless you're really like, I'm going to take the hard road so I can really see what it means to be me. Okay. Go for it. I know about it. It's tough on your family and your children, and it's hard to run your business, and it's, And this is not a new idea that I came up with while I was, sitting in the bathroom or something. This is through the tradition of yoga. Krishna is telling Arjuna about yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. And he's telling him that you need to go into the battlefield and fight. It's your destiny. And you know what he says? Nah, I don't think so. That's him at the whisper. And then he says, you need to do this. You hear the tone of my voice? And you know what he says? Nah, I don't really, I don't want to hurt anybody and don't really feel like it, So then what happens? You need to do this! Yeah, well. And he turns into this scary monster and says, do it now! And what does he do? He does it. That's how resistance works. Resistance is the best teacher that there is. And spiritual maturity is when you catch the lesson at the whisper. And spiritual immaturity is when you keep getting the do it now. Oh, this again? I've been in the same relationship with the same person in a different body 25 times. And so for us to get the teaching from resistance, yoga, really our yoga practice, the most important part is not about being spiritual. And it's not about doing exercise. It's about mental clarity. If you look at the Yoga Sutras, the way that Patanjali talked about yoga, 3, technically 4, but that's again another class, 3 of the 8 sutras are about meditation. The other ones stand on their own. If somebody tells you 3 out of 8 of this thing need to be done, you know it's extremely important. Right? In Kundalini Yoga, you have 10 bodies. 3 of them have to do with the mind, not 1. You see where I'm going with this? It's all highlighted there, like mental clarity, mental clarity, mental clarity. And look what's going on in the world today. People know how to, they're learning how to exercise, eat your kale, drink the green juice. I mean, I grew up in Alberta as a vegetarian. People thought, vegetarian, that means you only eat chicken and fish, right? I went to a vegan pizza place last night in Edmonton, everything vegan. I was like, this is amazing, woo! Bad Religion back in the day, now here we are, vegan, teaching meditation. Still listening to Bad Religion, by the way, and I recommend you do too. Mental clarity. And the other portion of Kundalini Yoga that is so important is energy management. So you can show up as you. And every spiritual journey begins with the same question. Whether you're a junkie, down and out, no money, no family, sick, or you're earning a 6-figure income and you got all the toys and you look good on paper. What's the question? Who am I? Who am I? You hear it all the time. There's got to be more to life than this. So that's how you can see it. It has nothing to do with the conditions. The conditions are the conditions. Yogi Bhajan said it really well when he said it's about security. You could have all the money and all the toys and be completely insecure. Couldn't you? You could have nothing material-wise and be fully secure. You could have all the things and all the bells and whistles and be secure in who you are. You could also have nothing and think you're nothing. This is a good teaching. And again, it isn't new, right? If you read the old books, they say yoga is self-realization. Just going to give you some numbers here because I can't remember the numbers as well as the teachings. So according to the American Psychological Association, chronic stress leads to the 6 primary causes of death: heart disease, cancer, lung ailments, accidents, cirrhosis of the liver, and suicide. And more than 75% of all physician office visits are for stress-related ailments and complaints. And there's a new study in Canada that said 45% of Canadians are prone to mental health issues. 45%. And those mental health issues are a result of anxiety. You see mental clarity, how important it is? If you get mental clarity from standing on your hands and putting your feet on your head, and then do that. But if it creates a pattern in your head where you feel like you're not good enough because you don't look like this, and you don't look like the person in the magazine, and you don't look like the person next to you, and you don't, knock it off. It's not yoga. Yoga is what? Oneness with God. Who's God? You are. You think God is going around going, well, I'm kind of not really that great, and if I was skinnier, then I would be happy, and then I would, You don't raise your kids like that. You say to your kids, if you were prettier, your friends at school would love you more. But you talk to yourself like that because you think that your conditions are you. You see why you need mental clarity? Have you heard of Sharon Salzberg before? Beautiful Buddhist teacher. She had this story. She had dealt a lot with negative self-talk in the early days. And she said, I saw a comic by Charles Schulz, Peanuts, Snoopy and Charlie Brown and all that. And Lucy is she's giving advice. You know what I'm saying? She has the booth and says like 5 cents for advice. And Charlie Brown says, I need some advice. And she said, okay. She said, you know what your problem is, Charlie Brown? Your problem is that you're you. And she thought, that sounds like my voice in my head. And she started calling that voice in her head Lucy. She's like, I had to give it a name because I knew it wasn't me. So I was like, Lucy, can you leave me alone, please? I'm trying to do something, or whatever. So she just refers to that bullshit belief system, BS, as Lucy. And Charlie Brown says to Lucy, what can I do about it? You know what Lucy says in classic Lucy advice? Oh, I don't know, I just point out the problems. That's what the negative mind does. You can do some research on these studies that neuroscientists, they talk about, and the Dalai Lama has spoken about this as well, that the mind, when it takes negative processing, is like Velcro. It clings to it. And when it experiences positive affirmation, it's like Teflon. It just slides off. So you need to work extra hard at holding on to the blessings. Right? Like if Jeremy said to me after this, that was the worst talk you ever gave. You're an idiot. I hope I never see you again. I'm going to carry that around with me for a long time. Like, I can't believe he said that. What? Like, I thought we were friends. He came up here to see me talk, and just have this whole trip about it. And then somebody else could come up and say, I've been listening to your podcast. It's amazing. I love it. You've changed my life. And we would have a hug and a photo. And by tomorrow, I'd have forgotten about them. Not because I'm an asshole or I don't care. It just happens like that. It's really true. I'm being honest with you. I do care about the latter, but it's just the way the mind works. So we're working constantly at tearing off the Velcro and gathering what slides off the Teflon. So we have all these things, like the most effective Buddhist meditation is a loving kindness meditation. The most effective, more like New Age sort of practice is a gratitude meditation. It's a constant reminder of who you are. Oh yeah, I'm not the Velcro. Or I give the analogy of the lampshade. People think they're their lampshade. Like you have a black lampshade, white lampshade, gay lampshade, transgender lampshade, all these lampshades. And you should celebrate your lampshade because you got a lampshade, you were born as a lampshade. But you're the light under the lampshade. That's who you are. And who's the light under the lampshade? Everybody. Same light. But we're still living in a time where people think they're the lampshade. I'm a this and you're a that. And we'll draw a line in the sand, and everybody over here gets the good stuff, and everybody here gets the mediocre stuff. And then when the people with the mediocre stuff get mad at the people with the good stuff, they'll fight each other. Or the people with the good stuff are over here pretending that there isn't any suffering because it doesn't affect them. You know what that's called? Privilege. It's all over the news. Take a look. Black Lives Matter. And whose pain is this? It's our pain. It affects everybody. You can't just pretend it's not there. Oh yeah, everything's fine. That's what happened with the Buddha. He was born royalty. And you know what his dad tried to do? Hide all suffering from him. Like create a false reality where you just have everything you want and you're happy all the time. And he rebelled against that. He snuck out of the palace. And what did he see? Suffering, poverty, sickness, death. Cold in here, huh? I don't know what to do about that, so just breathe deeper and hug each other. So we hear all these numbers about stress, and we recognize how important is it that we have mental clarity. Super important. The most important. Now, next time somebody tells you they can't do yoga because they're not flexible, correct them. It has nothing to do with that. Yeah, but I saw all the, put them on to the Revealing the Diamond podcast. I promise I will never tell them to stand on their head. Doesn't mean you shouldn't. Are you getting this? Some people hear that and then they think I'm saying no, don't do any exercises. Wrong. I'm saying do whatever it is that connects you to you. Makes sense. So we need to learn to relax. And we also need to take action. We need both. Don't we? And you see it, man. In Vancouver, there's a weed shop on every corner. Every corner. There's more marijuana shops than there is coffee shops on the West Coast. And I smoked a ton of weed in my day. But I'll tell you why I smoked a ton of weed in my day. So I didn't have to manage with any of this. Don't check out, check in. Or there's people doing like lighting their sage and they don't want to watch the news because it's going to harsh the mellow and they just need to be in the love and the... Resistance is going to show up and teach you if you do that. You have to see it all. Not, I can't think of a good way to make a joke about this, but I was thinking about like, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. That means when you see like all of these horrific things that are happening in the world, you see them and you go, this is a result of too much busyness in the mind, anxiety and stress, people relating to their conditions. And I'm going to do something about it by knowing exactly who I am in relationship to this and showing up in the ugly times and in the bountiful times and sharing blessings. Guru Jagat talked about grit yesterday. That's what you need. According to the yogis, you have 3 brains. We're talking about aliens, lemurs in the ground with magnets, 3 brains. This is out there stuff. But you have 3 brains. One is at the navel, one is at the heart, and one is in the center of the brain. That's why we call it Kundalini Yoga. You have an energetic system, like 72,000 wires running in the body that need to be free to function without blockages. And if they're not free to function without blockages, they get frayed. Did you ever have a relative that had like an iron when you were a kid that they wouldn't get rid of to get a new iron or something to that effect? And you see the cord is split and there's like all these electrical wires sticking out and you think like, you should just get a new iron, Grandma. You're going to kill somebody. People are walking around like that, fried. So what do they want? What do they do? Well, we got to smoke weed so that we can manage it. The only thing with smoking weed is it doesn't give you any tools to manage it. It's a Band-Aid. If you have pain, smoke weed. You got glaucoma or cancer, you're dealing with your... This is not a class about how marijuana is good or bad. I'm saying it isn't a very effective tool for the nervous system. In fact, it will numb you out, and then when you don't have it, something will happen and you'll zap somebody like the iron cord. Sorry, I just didn't have my weed today. It's real. Or people manage stress by just getting busy instead of checking out. The hustle is real, drinking coffee, hustling. But if you don't relax, it's not sustainable. You can't live like that. So you need both. Whether you want to check out or over-engage and ignore, you still have to learn how to manage stress. Is it possible to live a life as a human without stress? No. Why? Stress is a necessary component that allows nature to change. Talk to any person in here who's delivered a baby from inside them. The baby didn't just pop up. They didn't just like light a joint and then there was a baby there. Or just like, okay, I got this baby in me, I need to get it over with, so let's get it done, pop it out. Doesn't work like that. You need stress. And a yogi starts to recognize their relationship to stress. Are you the stress? No. It's part of nature. So you find some way to manage it so you can see who you are in relationship to the stress. And then when you see these yogis who are like 70, 80 years old, who appear to be ageless, you think, oh, it's because they do headstand. Wrong. It's because they've developed a clear system on, I get to decide how much stress passes through this part of Earth that I live in. I'm not defined by the stress. So you have a great relationship with boundaries. You have a great relationship with service. You have a great relationship with yourself. And because you have a great relationship with yourself, you can show up. and see people's assholeness and see the real person. And you'll have to be direct sometimes. I don't know if you've ever seen Yogi Bhajan speak when he's mad, but he's scary. And he can also be very sweet, kind. You have to be like that. Like a mother, you know. If you're a mother and you just say to the children, oh, just do whatever you want, who cares, it's all peace and whatever. If I did that to my daughter, she would eat candy all day, she would do whatever she wants, it would be a nightmare. But if I said to my daughter, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, she would go to the Bad Religion concert and never return. You need all of it. And where do you start the practice for that? With yourself. That's the energy management. It's like, oh yeah, this doesn't serve. Oh, this serves. Oh. In order to do that, you have to be very honest with yourself. I think the best word to describe it is trustworthiness. You have to trust yourself and recognize that you're worthy. If you trust yourself and know that you're worthy, you'll be able to go out into the world and people will trust you. If people can trust you, that's the best thing there is. If I can't trust you and you can't trust me, we're in trouble. You know? If I don't know who I am and you don't know who you are, we're in trouble. You know what I mean? Let's do a healing meditation to close out the session. And if you have more questions about this or you want to learn more about it, we can talk about it. I'm going to teach more of a Kriya set in the session tomorrow at noon. But I would like to do a healing meditation, especially because we get to be in Edmonton when there's some of this stuff happening where people in pain have been identifying with their conditions and inflicting pain on others. And I want to do a healing meditation for everybody in this room, everybody in the city, everybody in your family. And the idea is to give you an understanding of a very simple meditation, some of you will know it, that you can do for healing as a daily practice. Because you are the Buddha. There's not some historical figure that lived thousands of years ago that looks cute in your garden that you bought at Pier 1 Imports. It's you, being the best version of you. Right? So put your hands here with your elbows by your side, and then turn your palms facing up.